going to go till 6:40, 6:45. Okay, so we're up to the third Pirkei.
I want that salad.
Jeanette, we could hear you.
Jeanette, you have
Everybody
to
here?
share.
Everybody good?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to go to we're doing the third Pirkei in Pirkei Avot, and we'll follow the form that we've done. We follow what we've done in the past, which is we'll identify the author. I've muted just about everybody, so anybody who wants to unmute, please do. No problem at all. We'll identify the author, and then draw the messages and connect as many of the dots as possible. So Antigonos ish Socho. We're at the third Pirkei. He was an interesting person. His distinction.
Hi.
Hi, how are you, Sandy?
Hi.
Nice to see you. How you doing? His distinction is he learned with Shimon HaSadik, the gentleman we talked about last week, who was a very unique Cohen Gadol, a unique high priest, and that he happened to be a Talmid Chacham as well. This Antigonos ish Socho is the first person who was given a Greek name. So he's outstanding in that respect. We know very little about him, and this is the only quote that survives him. So we know he learned with Shimon HaSadik, the Kohen Gadol Talmid Chacham, who we spoke about. We know that he was somewhat sort of more societal and more modern. This is what survives him. So he writes, Al tihiyu ka'avadim ha'mishameshin et harav al menat lekabel piras. He says, don't be like people who serve their master for the benefit of service. It's a very it's a little bit cryptic. So we're going to dig into it. We're going to drill down pretty deep. He says, don't be in the service of God. We're going to expand it as well, but don't be in the service of God in order to get benefit from that service. And then he adds, but be like servants that are doing it not in order to get some benefit. Shelo al menat lekabel peras, vayhi mora shamayim alechem. And the awe of heaven should be on you. The awe of heaven should be on you. So the question, the immediate, what's the immediate question that comes to mind? Al tiyu those, don't be like those who are serving God in order to get a benefit. What's the problem with that statement?
It's obvious.
Well, some people
It's
do
obvious, right, Eli? What's the obvious?
That you're doing it to get something for something.
Yeah, but the obvious is, yeah, so what's the issue with that?
not doing it in the right heart, with the right.
Well, 1 second. But the issue is, we do serve God to get a benefit. We do. That's part of the structure. So
Is it quid pro quo?
What?
Is it quid pro quo?
We definitely know, and in certain cases, it's very overt, right? The benefit, the sachar we get, is very overt. If you respect a parent in a certain way, the benefit is very immediately described in the Torah. If you keep Shabbat, if you keep this, if you keep that, it's endless. The reward that's attached to mitzvot is very explicit and very direct. So some of the rabbis make the following distinction. They say, okay, there's a distinction between sachar, which is something that was merited by a good action, and piras, which is the terminology used here, which is something beyond, which is something that someone may want outside of what they've merited. Okay, in other words, there's a let's say in a relationship, let's take it to a human relationship, there's some level of quid pro quo, right? What's X is expected of me. If I do X, Y is expected of you. And that's normal and it's fine. And nobody looks down on it because that's how we relate to each other. And the same thing is true with God. God tells us, you know what? Follow these laws. Keep these things. If you're preemptive in giving charity, for example, then your wealth will be enhanced. If you don't judge others, you won't be judged, even if to the point where you should be judged. Kadosh Baruch Hu says you won't be judged. If you remove some pain from the planet, you'll be blessed. If you rebuke someone who needs rebuke, you will be blessed.
But Ricky, that's all true, but of course we know that isn't true. So we have to understand that when we do things doesn't mean we're going to get back, maybe not in this
Is it true? Is it true or isn't it true? Let's decide.
It's true, but doesn't mean you get it back in this world. Doesn't mean you get it back directly.
Right.
Directly.
Beautiful. But do we get something back? Are we promised something? You're absolutely right. We may get it now, and we may get it in an eternal.
The mitzvot
What?
get credited, no question. You get credited.
Okay, we definitely get something.
Right.
So our rabbis make an interesting distinction, and it's really what I want to build on today. They say that the sahar that someone gets is legitimate and real. No problem. That's okay. But when someone is pining for something more, that's where it's discouraged. So let's put it into human terms and then we'll jump back up. If, let's say there's in a good, healthy relationship, right? We give to the other person because we love the other person and we want to give. And that giving is a healthy giving, right? On the other side, assuming it's a good relationship, the other person gives back. And it's a healthy giving. And it's because we want it. It makes us happy to do so. So in a good, healthy relationship, we have this expectation of getting something in return. And that's okay. If you love your child, you expect them to love you back. If you care for person X or person Y, you expect the sahar, the reward, the benefit, you expect something. And that's great. And that's life. And that's the term da'at that we use. To relate to another person, the Torah term for relating is lada'at. And it means to know, but it means to know on a relationship level. So if we build a relationship, and we have many, God willing, right? With another person, and we invest in that or those relationships, and we give and we get back, that's essentially how it works. Cool? Eli, you good with that?
Sounds good.
Okay, good. Now, where does it become not good? When a person is needy and expects more than a healthy relationship will offer. Good? So, Reuven and Shimon, two people, right? Their relationship is built on, let's say, a decade of friendship. The relationship is a friendship, so it's in these parameters. And if everybody gives within those parameters, they have a great thing going, right? But if one person becomes needy from the other person, now you've broken the system. Now the structure can't work anymore because one person expects more from the other than that person can give. Right? Practical? Debbie? Good? Good? Okay? Now, are we making sense here? Everybody comfortable with this? That if a relationship is based on a healthy level of giving, then there's I give and I get. I give and I get. And that's fine. And I should expect to get. When I love a child, I should expect their respect. I should expect their love back, right? What are we talking about here? We're talking about a situation where that expectation is not appropriate. So let's give a couple of examples. I'll give you a classic example. You know, over the years, I've spoken to a number of young couples who had an interesting issue and a recurring issue. And what is it? That two people fall in love, and one or both, in certain cases, let's say one person's expectation is that she, the wife, is going to be his everything. The wife is going to be his everything. The wife is going to be his love mate, his best friend, his spiritual outlet, his practical outlet. That, you know, what do you mean? I'm marrying a person, right? I expect that I'm going to get all my needs filled. But in Judaism, we catch that and we say there is no everything person in the world, none. And your spouse or your child or your parent is not built to be the everything person. That's not the structure. And if you layer all that pressure onto another person, you will break them. You with me? So, in Judaism we say, Aseh lecha rav ukneh lecha chaver. We say that you have a person you fall in love with, and you build a certain portion of your life with them. Then you have a spiritual leader or guide in your life. And then you have dear friends in your life. And each of those have a very real role. Good? Everybody okay? Pashut, right? But if I try to overload any one person with unrealistic expectations, I'm going to break that person. And I'm going to end up in pain. And I'm going to distance that person from me. Okay, so far? So, what this rabbi is referring to is not the appropriate expectations of what I can expect back from God if I give to God. But the rabbi is referencing the beyond appropriate expectations, the things that express a needy relationship, a relationship that can never be emotionally satisfied. So on a man-God level, we say, I can expect something from God. That's cool to do that. And I don't have to do this because I just love God. Of course I love God. But I don't have to do it for that. I can expect something nice. But I can't expect God to run my life. God to cover every one of my bases. You know, we say that, it's all in God's hands. It's true. It's all in God's hands. But if I'm not moving, if I'm not doing, if I'm not building, if I'm not growing, what do you want God to do? Good so far? We're okay? Everybody comfortable?
Yes.
You're okay? Comfortable? Eli?
Yeah, excellent.
Okay, good. Now the second iteration here, which is also worth noting, is that how does a person engage in a healthy way in a relationship, whether it be with God or another person. And what this rabbi is highlighting for us is another very valuable point, which is that a person has to have a love of self in order for the person to be able to love another. So what do we mean by that? Andy, what do we mean by that? A love of self. I need a love of self in order to love another person. How does that work?
You need to be happy in your own skin and happy with yourself as a person and what you value and what you represent before you can give and love to someone else.
Fantastic. Clear, right? Beautiful. Good. So here, again, this needs to become a top of mind perspective. In other words, if I want to continue that healthy relationship with person X or with God or with a child or with whomever, a friend, a spouse, whatever, I need to make sure that my love of self is where it needs to be. And that's not so easy. Because sometimes if a person's love of self is not up there, is not vibrant, is not strong, then here again, the relationship is transformed from a healthy one to otherwise. Good? So, regardless of a person's age or life experience, we need to be working on this love of self in order for us to have successful love relationships elsewhere. So the things that come to mind are some of the things that some of us have spoken about. You know, the idea of teshuvah is a critical element here, a very positive and important one. And what that says is, as we've spoken about in other contexts, that if I stumbled, I made a mistake, I did something wrong, if I did it wrong once, if I did it wrong 16 times, and I confront it objectively, and I stand before God, and no less important, myself, and I say, you know what, I made a mistake, I think I know why I did it, and here's a plan to get rid of it, and I remove any self-judgment or guilt, now my ability to love me is greatly enhanced. And that's why we do this exercise 3 times a day, right? Morning, afternoon, and before we go to sleep. We make it a point to look at our day, confront anything that may not have gone the way we would have loved it to go, objectify it, remove any emotion from it, and say, even if this hasn't been absolutely fixed, I'm not guilty of something. I objectively understand why this happened, or I may not even fully understand. I don't have to. But this happened. I got it. I think I may be able to do better in this respect next time. I stand before God. I articulate it. God, I punched George in the nose. I broke his nose. Now, I did it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's 10 o'clock at night before I go to sleep. Is his nose fixed? No. Have he and I cleared the air? Not yet. But what do our rabbis design? This very exciting system based on HaKadosh Baruch Hu's notion of teshuvah, which is stand up like a man, so to speak, confront it, remove the emotion from it, and then fix it whenever you fix it. But the most important factor here is that you've removed the emotion from it and therefore remove any level of self-judgment and therefore can retain the maximum level of love of self. Good? Okay? Comfortable? Yeah? Okay. So let's put the pieces together. We've said that a person shouldn't have a relationship or love God or do the mitzvot in order to get something in return. The reality is that's not true. At any relationship, there's a give and take. And certainly a relationship with God, there's a give and take. By design, there should be. It's a good thing. Where it becomes off, potentially, is when somebody wants more than the relationship can give. So whether it be between man and God, we're here in that context, I got to stand up and do my thing, and he'll reward my thing, and he'll encourage it, and he'll strengthen it, and he'll give me more insights, but I can't stand still and expect him to do everything I need for me. And the same thing in a relationship. I need to understand what a person can give me and what he or she can't give me. And I can't overburden anybody to give me more than they should be able to give. And if I'm working hard forever, and I don't see this as just a young adult issue or a young married issue. I see it as an everybody issue. And as life changes and becomes different and circumstances are maybe more complex in certain respects, the self-love thing is no less challenging. You could have a great marriage, great relationships with kids, and you still have self-love challenges because life is very complicated. Good, but they're surmountable. And one of the key tools is teshuvah. Face an issue, get rid of the emotion, and move on. And objectify it and be cool with it. Good? Everybody okay?
Good.
Everybody's quiet? Huh? Okay, fine. So then let's deal with the last part of this Mishnah. The last part of the Mishnah says, V'hi mora shamayim alechem. What does the word mora mean? Mora or yir'ah. Joe Shami, what does it mean? Mora. Gotcha? Huh? Joe, what does mora mean? Huh?
I think he's on mute.
Oh, I'm trying to
I
unmute him.
was
There you
on
go.
mute. Sorry, I couldn't
Okay.
get you off mute. What is Mora? I'm not, the only one I know is Mora is a teacher.
Fear.
No, mora with an olive, fear. Beautiful. Mora with an olive means fear. What is mora? We loosely translate the word mora as fear. But what does it really mean? What is the nuance here? There's a nuance with the word mora or yir'ah. Yir'at Hashem. What does yir'ah mean?
Fear.
It's not really fear. What is it?
Reverence?
It's reverence. Beautiful. It's reverence. It's awe.
Or
What's the difference between reverence or awe and fear?
so you're in the presence of something that's greater than you. and you
It's a
can have
positive
either-
connotation.
Yeah, and you either looking up
Exactly,
to it,
Adrian.
and or it's just so powerful.
Well, fear is negative, meaning that you may get punished. So that's why you're going to do something, because you may get punished. The other ones are
Right.
out of love.
Beautiful. So awe is it has a positive connotation. Great. Now, we understand that we should be in awe of God, right, for obvious reasons. But how does yir'ah or awe work in a human relationship? How does it work?
Go ahead.
Steely, what do you say? How does it work?
Respect, no, and you try to
Respect
understand that
person.
person.
Treat them the right way. Respect
Steely,
them.
what were you saying?
I said respect as well, like Debbie.
Beautiful. So give it to me more simply. Give me something practical in terms of yir'ah or awe or reverence in a human relationship. What would it be?
When you look up to someone that does something great, maybe? Like,
Beautiful. And you look up to someone who does something great. Good. Give it to me in a more equal relationship.
Ricky, maybe realizing there's limitations, what to expect from people.
Good. So like we said a minute ago, right, there are limitations.
Oh, I think if you're saying in an equal relationship, that means that same awe that you have for that person is also expected of you. And then you both have to set your bar very high to reach up to what you see in the other and what you therefore want to see in yourself.
Very good. Good. So it's got to be a mutual
It
thing.
has to be a give and take, like what you said before.
Right. And what does it demand of me on a practical level? What does it demand of me on a practical level that's transformative to a relationship? What is it? What is it? I sent out, my daughter Gail has me on Instagram now. So she has me sending out these quotes and short videos and all kinds of stuff that she's teaching me about. And what we spoke about last night in this short video was the following 3 mitzvot in the upcoming parasha. We talked about kabed et avicha v'et imecha, meaning honor a parent. Mipnei seva takum, stand up when an older person walks in the room. And ve'adata pnei zaken, and revere the person of knowledge. So, respect a parent, stand up when an older person walks into the room, and revere a person of knowledge. When you look at those 3 mitzvot separately, they're very nice. Each one tells an important story. But they weren't put there in the same context by mistake. HaKadosh Baruch Hu dictated them in the context that he did in order for us to connect them. So when you connect them, it sounds like this. There is an absolute and fundamental respect that we give to a mother and a father. Good. So an older person walks into a room, we stand up, period. Good. You respect them. And the third one being that we have a respect for knowledge. That's a very big thing. It's a very big thing. Because in normal life, I don't know, do we really do that? We have a respect for powerful people. We have a respect for rich people. We have a respect for knowledge, a knowledgeable people. Would we revere a person of knowledge? Not so sure. But it's mitzvah deoraita to do so. In other words, when you put these 3 mitzvot together and you appreciate the fact that it's in one context, what it tells you is that being in awe, revering, valuing, yira'ah, is an emotion that has to be expressed in action.
See?
Right? It has to be practically expressed. So, if Hashem says, be in awe of me, and we know it's not fear, as you've beautifully described, but it's awe, it means revere me, appreciate the relationship, be grateful. And what that means is we're not talking about an emotional expression simply, we're talking about action. That emotional appreciation is an action. Gratitude is an action. Awe is an action. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't simply say, respect an elderly person. He said, stand up when the person walks in the room. Why? Just tell me to respect them. Isn't that enough? The answer is it ain't enough. Because if you think it's enough, then for you, emotion remains in your heart and in your mind, not in your being, not in your practical day-to-day. So when we see the writings of this author and we refer back to this present parasha, just coincidentally, we're reminded of a very valuable lesson that if I'm in awe, if I have a certain level of great gratitude for what the relationships I have, whether they be a friend, a teacher, a child, a spouse, or whomever, it's essential for me to express that on a very practical level. It's not enough to feel it in my heart. Why does standing up in the room? Does the old man care if you stand up? Absolutely not. The standing up is completely for me to be sensitized, for me to demonstrate that emotion is an action. The same thing with reverence for a person of knowledge or respect for a parent. Respect for a parent means that I am always in the game, forever, thinking about how on a practical, ma'asi level, on an actionable level, I can show my respect. Not simply express verbally, but show practically. That's the difference. So when we see the term morah, we see the term awe or reverence, what we're talking about is this clear Torah directive that emotion is an action and it's not simply an expression of the heart. And I should be working and thinking always on how to more practically, more regularly express my emotion in action.
Wow.
A small gift, a small note, another compliment, whatever, obvious stuff, but it goes miles. To wrap up and to talk just to where we started, you know, how,
But Ricky, can I ask you a question?
right, sure.
How does that relate to in the beginning when you said not to expect too much from a relationship? I don't understand how the two are connected. Like years ago, 15 years ago, maybe an older friend told me similar thing when I was hurt by another friend. She said, not every friend is going to be everything to you. Meaning each one of your friends have their good qualities. One's funny, one you'll love to shop with, one you'll love to study with, whatever. Not every friend is going to be everything to you. Basically the same thing, not to expect too much from one person. But how is that relating to being
I
in
think it
awe
goes
of
like this.
someone?
I think it goes like this. I think over here, we also have to be very, very on this point. And it goes like this. Knelecha chaver, what I mentioned before, means that friends are people I should be very selective in identifying. In other words, before I let someone into my life and into my
Starting
heart,
route to 35 Cohen Place.
They're saying this on a friend Zoom, Ricky.
what's that? Yeah, right?
On a friend Zoom.
Yeah. So we better be careful then.
And Debbie, I was friends with you 20, 30, 20 years ago.
We're all good friends. We're hand
Okay.
selected.
Yeah.
So before we become as good friends as we are here, right? Which thank God is a blessing, beautiful thing. We need to really consider some very important things. A friend from a Jewish perspective is someone who enriches my life. Now, if we thought about all the people we know, I think you would probably narrow the field somewhat if you defined a friend, you know, present company excluded, right? Because we all do enrich each other's lives. But if you defined a friend as someone who enriches my life, I'm not sure that you would qualify it the way this person told you to. Because if a friend enriches my life, I'm probably not going to be disappointed by that person. And I'll tell you, in my own life, I can count on my hand, on my two hands, the friends who enrich my life. People who I like and respect and care about, thank God, tons. But people who I let into my heart, who I feel reverence for, who I thank God for, who I would trust with anything because they are the chaver, the friend that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that God imagines us to have. If you have a half a dozen of those, you hit a grand slam in life. You
Richie,
with me?
I agree.
Ricky, that's a powerful statement coming from you. I have to tell you, No, it's powerful. A man like you, well established, well loved. You would think
I'm
would
just
have
saying
maybe
that
100.
I love a lot of people. I love a lot of people, as we all do. But to the people who are enrich my life, you know, I don't know. Not so many. Doesn't mean I don't love the other person, but it means that I'm going to invest less emotionally. To your point, Sandy,
Right.
I'm going to have a different level of expectation. Doesn't mean that they're not a fabulous person. They are. But when we talk about that notion of awe, Eli, to your point, that notion of awe, yeah, that notion of a commitment, that notion of being vulnerable. You know, Judaism demands a person to be vulnerable. Debbie, what does vulnerable mean to you?
Well, asking someone, let's say, for forgiveness, that's showing your vulnerability.
Right? What else?
People have a hard time with that, asking for forgiveness, because they feel like, oh, they weren't supposed to make a mistake, or they're supposed to admit that they made a mistake, because you think it's supposed to be like perfect or something.
Right? Good.
But
What else
vulnerability
means
is
vulnerable?
being put your emotions out there and risking not being accepted or feeling not being
Beauty.
accepted.
It's more
Result.
that. It's more
Beautiful.
that. That's really what vulnerability is allowing.
Beautiful.
Right.
Judaism, the term da'at, which I explained as relationship, is the lead component in da'at is vulnerability. Now, to go back to Eli's point of a few minutes ago, how many people can each of you be not completely, but be largely vulnerable with? A lot?
I could count it on my one hand, probably.
That's tough.
Beautiful. So
Right.
That's tough.
those people are the chaver. Those people are the people that the rabbis identify for us, where we have an awe in that relationship. We have a great sense of gratitude, and we allow ourselves to be vulnerable. Those are a handful of relationships, and we have to work hard to keep those relationships. And part of the hard work is to express our emotion practically. For that person with whom I have that level of sharing, that extra card is very nice to write. That extra text, that extra word that you use in a birthday wish that expresses a level of vulnerability. Maybe you use the word love more often than you would otherwise. Maybe you share, but we pine for those relationships. We want them desperately because they speak so much to what the human being should have. They're beautiful. They're the greatest. And it doesn't mean we don't have thousands of friends. Thank God, we are incredibly blessed in this community to have large families and friends, and it's fabulous. But how many people with whom can I be vulnerable? If I got 3 or 4, 6 is a lot. But if I have 3 or 4, that's a blessing. And with those people, with everybody, I express myself appropriately. But with those people, that's where I have a sense of morah, of yirah, of awe, of reverence. And those are the relationships that have to be serviced differently. That's the relationship you want to have with God. You want to be in love with God. You want to be in awe of God. You want to feel that sense of reverence. You want to be able to be vulnerable. And you want to be having a great time. One of the people in my life with whom I share this way, when we don't speak all that often, we speak at this point, I don't know, a handful of times a year. But the first thing we do when we meet up or we pick up the phone to each other, we just laugh. Just laugh. For minutes on end, we just laugh because we love each other and we have fun, and we always had fun together. We always went through tough things shoulder to shoulder in terms of helping guide each other in each other's lives and growth. And we were always immensely vulnerable but we have that level of trust and great time. And it's laugh, and we laugh.
Ricky,
And it's the same dumb jokes or whatever it might be.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah,
it
Jeanette.
okay? Oh, so let's say someone is vulnerable on their end and they're expressive, but on the other end, you're not sure if the person's going to take it incorrectly. You don't know. Maybe on the other end, that friendship or that friend can't reciprocate what you could
Right.
have, that vulnerability, or they don't show it that
Let
way.
me tell you what.
Should you
Let me
hold
tell you.
back?
Beautiful. Let me tell you what the Torah model is. And it's contrary to the Western model. The Torah model is contrary to the Western model. The Torah model goes as follows. I need to look at the person and understand the quality of the person, right? I understand there's a quality person here, right? Good. That's an assumption. I have to take that time to make sure there's a quality person here. Assuming there's a quality person, I need to become vulnerable. I put my trust in the person even though they may hurt me. That's the Jewish model. The Western model is very different. The Western model is a much more guarded model, that I have to protect my emotion and my space. That's not the Jewish model. The Jewish model is assuming this is a quality person, then you know what? I'm going to extend myself emotionally and be a little more vulnerable, even though I might get hurt. The Western model is that we protect ourselves and we don't allow ourselves to be vulnerable. And
But that means,
huh?
no, I was going to say that also takes practice, because are we Western in our thinking and living, or are we more Jewish on an everyday thought process and action? So you need to work on it.
You're absolutely right. You have to work on it. This is a hard thing, because we are American. We did grow up here. We are very Western in that respect. But America is a lonely place. America is a lonely country. Absolutely. Because it's fiercely Western in this respect. In Mediterranean countries, it's different. People are more open. We're very much that way. So to your point, we have to fight it. We have to understand that if the person is quality and our core values are fundamentally the same, let me take a shot. Maybe 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4 times I'm going to get hurt. Not 3 out of 4 times, but 1 out of 4 times I'm going to get hurt. But that's okay. It's worth it. Because the other couple of times I will have engaged another human being on a level that's almost bliss. It's bliss. When you share with a person, and you all have these relationships, I have no doubt, but when you share with a person where you can trust and be vulnerable like that, it's great. You're going to be laughing half the time, even if you're crying together, because you're in each other's souls. You're literally in each other's souls. It's the greatest. And that's what we want. And that's da'at. And that's what we're talking about here. That's an expectation. That's a way of life. And if it's 3 people out of your 82 friends, so be it. Enjoy the other 79, but invest in the 3. Invest in the 3. And do the same with God. You can be completely vulnerable with God. We have to learn to be that way. Get comfortable. Talk to him. Confide in him. Cry to him. Yell at him. That's what he wants. And that's what we can have. And you have that if you understand that that's the structure of relationship in Judaism. And that's really the goal.
Beautiful.
Good?
That was unreal.
Very nice.
Really
Thank
so
you.
nice.
Great, y'all. Thank you. It's great to see you.
Thank you, Ricky.
If we have a class Thursday at 1 p.m., whoever can join, please join. Love to see you there. It's about 35, 40 minutes. And yeah.
What's the Thursday class usually?
Very inspiring.
It's different topics each week. This week, we're going to be talking about simcha, about happiness from a number of
nice.
different perspectives. All right, it's about 35, 40 minutes and same dial-in.
This was awesome.
Really great.
Thank you.
So much.
Okay.
Ricky, we're off for next
Thank
week.
you.
See everybody at
Next
the
Tuesday, right,
at the
Ricky?
center event
This
in an
Thursday.
hour.
This Thursday for the other class, 1 o'clock, and next week at Tuesday, God willing, same time.
Awesome.
Hi, everybody.
The
Bye.
center
Great
event
to
is
see
at 8
everybody.
Listen,
Thank
the center
you.
event at 8
Miss
p.m.
you,
is 8 p.m.
Jeanette.
sharp.
Hi, guys.
1 minute.
Adrian.
There's
Hi,
2
Dad.
minutes of
Hi, Dad.
silence.
Where's Eli?
3 o'clock
Silly.
start. They do 2 minutes.
Where's
So
Eli
try
Harry?
everyone be on time.
And
8
he's on his
o'clock.
way home from work.
Okay. Everybody
that on-
sent
I
the
think he
program
listened to
tonight,
the audio, I
8
think in the
p.m.
car.
tonight.
Sorry.
8 p.m.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ricky.
We should stay
All
on
right,
and
thank
chit
you
chat.
all. Great to see you. Thank you.
It's
Thanks,
gonna tire
Ricky.
you out anyway.
Thank you.
Start